Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1053 of our daily content grind, and it is once again time to look at 10 toys from a particular year and tell you my opinion of what the absolute best ones are. We are up to the year 2004, and this is getting tricky. So we have a lot of toy lines to keep track of here. So this is the year for Energon here in the States. Alternators and vinyl tech are in full swing now. Japan has decided we're going to introduce Robot Masters on top of everything else. And if that's not enough, with 3 days to spare at the end of the year, Transformers Galaxy Force launches. 2004 is a bonkers year, man. There's a lot going on to this year. So this one is going to be far more subjective. I try to be as objective as possible. What are just the 10 best toys, by fact of the matter. It's going to get harder and harder to do that, but I do try. So keeping in mind that this is all based on how good is a toy, based on what you pay for it, here's the top 10 toys of the year 2004. And we're going to start with an absolute banger of a basic class figure. And when we're starting with a figure this cool and this popular, you know the year itself was pretty loaded. Let's talk about Dive Bomb. This is probably the first Transformer I can remember that really pulled off a ninja aesthetic in a believable way. Like there's the laser rods from the laser cycles from G2. That kind of had a ninja aesthetic going on, but like I can't take a motorcycle seriously as a ninja device, especially a Harley. But this, whew. So you've got a super cool look, right? The white and the dark blue, like it contrasts really well. I mean, he looks sharp on literally every angle. It's a really cool looking robot mode, thanks in part to the genius who figured out the bird wings could actually be legs, so he didn't have some giant wing backpack. And that lets his bird bulk actually be used for the rest of the robot. Solves a lot of problems that usually come with bird transformers, so I've always been grateful for this toy's existence as a result. It just happens to be a really cool looking bird on top of that. Then you got the weapon. So the weapon forms blades in the actual in the beast mode, and then this lightning shaped blade in the robot mode. And depending on which version you got, you either had only one handle and a sharp point that probably wasn't legal to sell in the US, or the version 2 that had 2 handles. Either way, this toy was exceptionally cool. One of the best and most popular basic class toys that you would ever see. To this day, this is one that people still want a new toy of. And we came close with the mainline or core edition, whatever they called it, Air Razor from Rise of the Beast. But this, the fact that people still talk about this toy to this day will tell you how good it was even at the lowest price point. This one might be a personal favorite, and I will admit, there's a little bit of bias here, but I will still champion this toy because I think it is a really good toy that's a lot of fun, and its return is very long overdue. Let's talk Tow Line. I love this little guy. So Tow Line seems to be them trying to do what G1, Ratchet, and Ironhide seemed to be back in the day without being a bad toy. Articulation-wise, he was about level 2 most every Energon toy you could put him up against. The accessory, a little weird, but for the vehicle mode, to make a news van out of him, still works. What really gets me is the fact that he can play with the Power Links gimmick, albeit in his own really unique way. That sled that forms like half of his vehicle mode, akin to the one that G1, Ironhide, and Ratchet had, has a Power Link connector. You can connect a Deluxe onto there. If you want to be real funny, you connect a Mega Class on there. But in his own way, he can actually combine with it, creates this rolling platform kind of Centaur robot. That's cool. The van mode, I like. The fact that he can combine as an upper body with your Power Links toys, love that too. There's a lot of play value here. There's a ton of play value here for just a standard deluxe, and I think it makes it for a fantastically fun figure. And the fact that we've gotten so many Ratchet and Ironhide toys, while any of them being repainted in blue and white stuns me. Like, I feel like this is just a shoo-in for an easy repaint and homage to do, and yet we do not see it. But then again, to really get them right, you'd have to do a G1 Ratchet and Ironhide toy style, and you know Hasbro's not going to go there. So toy line-wise, Toe Line's probably stuck in 2004, but man, does he leave an impact. Typically, the biggest toys of the line end up very high on this list, so you might be surprised when I put one this low. I will acknowledge it is a good toy, but to be honest with you, Omega Supreme could be doing a lot more for being one of the most expensive toys of the year. It is a super huge figure. It is big, imposing. It is about as articulated as I would expect from a big brick of a toy. And he does have a lot of fun features. Like, he was the first toy to have like a Headmaster style gimmick in, well, a year. Let's be fair, Sideways was a thing, but this was like more correct Headmaster. And then the idea of like the two halves splitting down the middle, you know, symmetrical docking style to create the two vehicle modes, the battleship, the crane train, or whatever that was, and then the super train they could form. He does do quite a bit. But compared to the gimmick and feature-loaded Unicron, he just doesn't feel like he does enough to really push his price point as hard as he should. You know, the best he can do is combining with Optimus, which, let's be honest, is one of the most ridiculous Optimus combinations of all time. My personal least favorite. That said, the individual toy is still cool. I will still champion the toy. It's a cool take on Omega Supreme, the likes of which we'll likely never see again because everyone just wants him to be a spaceship or a rocket base. You're never going to see the battleship / giant crane version again. So this is very much of his time, but you know what? Yeah, it's still a cool enough figure for me to go, yeah, that's probably one of the best. Here's one I champion a lot, and in the recent years, I've seen more people coming around to my way of thinking, because, yeah, this toy genuinely deserves it. Let's talk one more time about Energon Prowl. I love this little gremlin of a robot. Yes, he's this short little stocky guy, but like we stand a short king here on this channel. He's a cool looking bot. I really like how he looks in his robot mode. It's very distinct and different, even though he's kind of Mirage, kind of Prowl, you know, kind of doing his own thing too. The vehicle mode is awesome looking. I love how his vehicle mode looks, you know, with the, you know, it's very fantasy. It's very like, it's very anime in style to have like an F1 car as a police pursuit vehicle. Every now and then I gotta see it, and every time I see the aesthetic, I go, that looks super cool. So we got one as a Transformer, and it's super cool. Where he shines is the fact that he is easily the best deluxe power linker of them all. If you want articulation, he can do that. He actually has articulation in upper body and lower body mode. That big chest piece of his, you can expand that out to be a chest piece for a top side combine, or rotate it down to be a skirt for a lower side combine. He's versatile like that. And just, yeah, him, and even the individual bot himself is also fairly articulated for the time. He's an all-around great toy. He doesn't really do anything wrong. I think people just disliked him for a long time over like how stocky and weird his robot mode looks, but there's a charm to it, and the toy does a lot of really cool things. So if you've come around to enjoy Energon Prowl, you're on the right side of history. We have to correct a faux pas from the previous list. I left off Smokescreen from Alternators, even after I mentioned Alternators began in 2003. For the official record, he would have slotted in number 5 or number 4, bumping Strong Arm, or maybe even Hoist off the list. But we're not going to screw it up this time. I've accounted for all the lines that I think produced the best toys. So let's talk about Maester. So, admittedly, deco-wise, kind of plain. You know it's Jazz, but without that splash of color on the hood, he is a little bit lacking in the visual department. That said, makes a really, really cool looking vehicle the way that Jazz is supposed to. It's just a modern one this time. And really, it feels like this toy took a lot of the lessons that they learned from designing and engineering Smokescreen and applied them to just make a better version of that toy. Silhouette-wise, design-wise, he does a lot of the same things. The door wings, the hood chest, the wheels ending up behind the arms. But the toy just feels so much cleaner and so much more intuitive than Smokescreen did. These days, a complex transformation like a lot of these alternators had is not nearly a big deal. We've got Movie Masterpiece toys that take over 70 steps to transform. These guys ain't a big deal. But back then, if you could improve a toy this complicated in a way that made it more sensible when you transform it, it was a really big deal. So yeah, the fact that they did that and they produced just this really clean, really nice take on Jazz was really, really cool. And of course, we got some ridiculous retools out of it, which was kind of fun. But yeah, it's what Smokescreen should have been from the get-go. But at least they learned, and hey, it's all the better for Jazz. Maester. When you talk about toys that can do a lot, you have to put one of these on the list. Yeah, so the big like ultra size Autobots were all about the extra component that makes them like into big brute modes. So they had some form of combination without actually interlinking and doing the power links thing. So we can talk about Landmine here and just how much he did, like a ridiculous amount of versatility with this toy. First off, the destruction vehicle he turns into is already a really cool look. Really already like how that toy looks that way. But then the fact that you can take off the backside of that kibble and just have a much more standard work truck, that's a good bit of versatility. I like to see that. You have the robot mode, which is nice and clean. You have the brute mode, which is, inherently bulky, because that's the point. And then you have the, defense turret that you can form out of the bulk if you don't want to combine it onto Landmine. It's a versatile toy. I mean, that's, when we're talking about, like, sheer play value and it's just fun to mess with, this is pretty high up there. Now, I think the only problem this toy ever had was I could never find a deco for it that I really liked. I've got BotCon Land Shark. I think that's the only version of the toy I still have. And it comes close, but I still feel like this toy never saw its perfect color scheme. I don't know what it would be, but yeah, at the very least, I know a lot remember this toy really fondly, as do I. So, no surprise that this would be up on the list. So, yeah, not one I ever expect to see again. But it was fun for its time. Even though Alternators was all about bringing back Generation 1 toys using vehicles that were the modern versions of the originals or something similar, it was very rare when they actually nailed it and actually like knocked it out of the park as far as just like creating a brand new version of the old character. The time they got it absolutely perfect was Hound. Done as a modern Jeep Wrangler, he is a modern version of his original Army Jeep alt mode. He looks spot on. He absolutely looks the part of a modern, large-scale Autobot Hound. He is a perfect upscale of his previous G1 self. In a way that none of the others really approach. Even like the likes of like Silver Streak, about the closest you're going to get otherwise. And even that one's not as spot on as this one is. Attach the fact that you also have a lot of the tricks that alternators could do. You have the storeway weapon, which was in his wheel rather than the engine itself. The engine was still there. You could raise the hood. You could open the doors. You have the open air seating area, with a detailed interior. I always give a few extra points for the fact that a toy can transform without having to hide a bunch of its robot parts inside with a closed-off roof. Brilliant job there. He didn't have the steering thing that alternators had, but he did have suspension, which I think on a Jeep toy, I think that works a lot better. Yeah, and then he doesn't really suffer in the articulation department. Toys like Trax, for instance, brilliant upgrade using the modern vehicle, but the articulation on him is just stunted for some weird reason. So, I can't put him up on the list, but I will absolutely give the nod to Hound. Fantastic alternator toy, absolutely deserves to be given credit. Yeah, one of the best, possibly the best alternators ever got. If you've been on this channel for anywhere longer than, oh, I don't know, a week, you might have picked up on the fact that I think that Transformers Cybertron is the best toy line Hasbro and Transformers ever produced. So, like I said, they made it under the line with 3 days to spare. December 28th, Galaxy Force came out in Japan, which means its first wave is eligible for this year's list. You will not be surprised that the rest of this list is going to take from it. We start with Starscream, which of course we do, because this is the best Starscream toy ever. Well, maybe not. Maybe that's an exaggeration. But I love the design. I think it is a design that captures the sleekness and the power of Starscream all at the same time and exemplifies it in a way that I don't think any design has done before or since. I think it's a perfect form and perfect upgrade of the classic design. I love the War Within inspired vehicle mode. You know, at that time, it was the closest to a Tetrajet we had gotten in Transformers toys. I love the gimmick. The gimmick is still fantastic, where, keep in mind, the arms themselves are articulated. You know, you can move the arms outward and you can move them up. But when you put the key inside his back, both arms flip out a blade. And to be able to have full range of articulation and still have the flip out blade gimmick on both sides simultaneously, that's a really good trick. I will admit, he is not perfect, right? So the arms are kind of stunted in their articulation. You know, maybe the transformation's a little bit too simple for you. But this is my list. It's my preference. And this is still one of my favorite toys of all time. You know, I will acknowledge its flaws enough to mark it down to number 3. That said, still think it's fantastic, and having reacquired the mold recently, it's still a lot of fun. Once upon a time, I named that Starscream toy one of the best of the decade, and I think I left the number 2 toy off, because now that I can look at things a little bit more objectively and I've had more time to process and think about it, I kind of start to realize that Megatron toy was really, really good. That's a really, really good Megatron. For starters, the look. Oh my god. So, it's a very colorful take on Megatron. Weirdly enough, I kind of think it works. You know, like, you're getting that bright hit of orange, but beyond that, everything else, like the teals, the grays, the purples, the black, I think all of that kind of blends together, and that orange hit is the only thing that really comes through, but you need that pop in that color scheme. So, ultimately, like, yeah, like, it's very colorful Megs, but it works. You know, and the idea that, like, this is, like, a new form comprised of, like, you know, like Unicron parts, I expect a little bit of orange in there. The jet mode is silly. The jet mode is silly, but I still appreciate that it is an option. That said, the car mode is amazing looking. He looks like the coolest Batmobile that never existed. And then you get into just, you know, the loads of gimmicks. You know, the spring out missiles, you've got the flip out blades, you've got the combination with Nemesis Breaker, and you've got the hidden blaster weapon as well. It's a really cool toy. It's just it's a really cool, really strong and powerful Megatron design. This is where I kind of stare at Commander class toys and go, you're going to do that again, right? You're going to do the big car Megatron again, right? Do you even need to upgrade it, though? Would it even be an upgrade? When the toy is this good to begin with, does a modern version even stand a chance of being as good? It's a debate I have over and over. For now, we're just talking about how good it was back in the day. And yeah, that Megatron, really, really good. But if you know me at all, there's only one toy that can be at the top of this list. And yeah, this is no surprise to absolutely anybody on this list. Just go ahead and get out of the way. It's Optimus Prime. This is the year that this toy came out. The decade this toy came out. I said this was the toy of the decade. To this day, I tell people this is my favorite Transformer toy. Not too long ago, I did a whole review of this toy just to explain what I love about it so much. And all of it still holds true. It is an all-around, everything you want out of an Optimus Prime toy. Does he have the Matrix? Yes. And it's a full Matrix annex. It's not just open the chest. There's an extra layer like there's supposed to be. Does he have the normal truck mode? Yes, but he also has a fire truck mode. Fire truck mode also has a flight mode. The bulk of the fire truck mode also has an artillery mode. The robot mode, yeah. Do you want the head fins out or in? You can do that. Do you want a face mask or do you want a mouth? You can have either one. The super mode is a beautiful thing. Huge cannons, extra guns, big wing pack. Looks very different than the standard one without going too far. There is such a balance to this toy in everything that it does. And overall, just so much of this toy is done so well. And you have so many options and variety of things to do. It's just a masterpiece of toy design and engineering. So for that, no shock to anyone whatsoever. Optimus Prime, Galaxy Force Optimus Prime, my best toy of 2004. Easily. And that is going to do it for the list. This is going to put 2005 in an interesting position because I don't have Cybertron Optimus Prime to lean on, but I'm sure there's some first-run toys the next year that are worthy of the nod. So, as always, these lists are always up for debate, and I invite you to debate them in the comments below as long as you remain civil about it, and I thank you for watching. As always, I will see you next time.